Okay, so just imagine opening up your phone and TikTok is gone. Like it just vanished.
Poof.
Erased completely. And that is the potential future for millions of Americans as the U.S. government grapples with this whole ban on TikTok over national security concerns.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, really. On one side, you have the U.S. government, and they're saying that TikTok, which is owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, is like a serious threat.
Right.
They're worried about data harvesting and the Chinese government spreading misinformation.
Yeah, and this isn't like just some political grandstanding or something. This is real law. An actual law that says ByteDance either has to sell TikTok to a U.S. company or it faces a nationwide ban. And the deadline is coming up fast. It's January 19th, 2025.
Yeah, so we are really looking at a potential ban.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to this debate that's happening in the Supreme Court right now. Does the government banning an app, just because it's owned by a company in another country, go against the First Amendment rights of Americans? You know, both the users and the creators.
Absolutely. And before we dive deeper into this super complex topic, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our discussions. So getting back to the courtroom drama, it sounds like Chief Justice Roberts is leaning toward putting national security first, which lines up with what we've heard from Congress and the president. But then you have Justices Kagan and Jackson. They get the whole national security thing, but they're really pushing the boundaries of how far the government can go when it comes to our digital lives.
Right, and that's, a huge question. We have to think about how to balance security and freedom in a world that's becoming more and more digital every day. To get a better understanding of all this, let's break down the arguments being made in court. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start with how TikTok is defending itself. Their lawyer, Noah Francisco, he's making a really bold argument. He's saying that the app's algorithm, the very thing that controls what you see on your feed, is basically a form of expression. And that's protected by the First Amendment.
It's interesting, right? Because what Francisco is getting at is that if you try to regulate this algorithm, it would directly impact how TikTok works in the U.S. And that, of course, affects American users.
Right.
To kind of illustrate this, he's comparing it to, imagine if China was pressuring Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, to put out certain content.
Yeah.
Francisco argues that even in that situation, the government couldn't force Bezos to sell the paper or shut it down.
So basically he's saying the government can't tell an app what to show its users, even if a foreign company owns that app.
Exactly.
But the U.S. government is pushing back. They're saying TikTok is different. They claim that having a foreign power potentially doing things like covert data operations and manipulation,
right,
it goes way beyond just controlling what a news website shows.
Yeah, and this is where things get really interesting. Jeff Pfizer, the lawyer representing all those TikTok creators, he's bringing in a whole new angle. He's emphasizing how special TikTok is as a platform. He argues that everyday Americans are building businesses and expressing themselves in ways that other platforms just don't allow. It's like, as Justice Alito put it, that one-of-a-kind vintage shirt you just can't find anywhere else.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, Pfizer argues that forcing creators to switch platforms would totally hurt how many people they can reach and limit their creative expression. It's like silencing them.
Absolutely. And that brings up a really important question. We want to hear from you. Do you think protecting national security is more important than the impact this could have on American users and creators, the people who depend on TikTok for their livelihoods and how they express themselves? This debate is sparking some serious thoughts, right? Hit that like button and let us know what you think in the comments.
Please do. It's such an interesting debate.
It really is. So it all boils down to this.
Yeah.
Can China, through an American company, use their influence to basically sidestep the First Amendment? TikTok insists that how they operate in the U.S. is separate. They say they don't give user data to the Chinese government. But the U.S. government isn't buying it. They say that because ByteDance owns TikTok, it gives the Chinese government the power to basically weaponize the app whenever they want.
And Justice Kavanaugh even brought up a really chilling possibility during the hearings.
Okay, what's that?
Well, he suggested that China could take the data they collect now and use it in the future to blackmail people who, say, end up working for the government or in other important positions. It's like this ticking time bomb, The consequences might not be obvious right away, but they could be devastating down the line.
That's scary. And this whole thing raises the question, is it right to single out TikTok just because it's owned by a company in China?
Exactly. Justice Thomas actually brought that up during the hearings, too. He was questioning whether there's a real difference between an American company secretly manipulating things versus a foreign company doing it.
It's such a slippery slope. Once you start regulating content based on how it might be manipulated, where do you stop? Could this lead to the government censoring ideas they just don't agree with?
It's a thought-provoking question, isn't it?
It really is. It's a pretty scary thought, actually.
Yeah, definitely. So let's bring in what our legal expert Kim had to say about all this. She pointed out that it's really important to remember that both American users and TikTok itself have First Amendment rights too. Banning the app could be seen as silencing those voices and setting a really bad precedent.
Right. And that leads us to another layer of this whole thing.
Okay, I'm listening.
Legal experts are actually questioning if the First Amendment, which was written centuries ago, can even handle the challenges we're facing in today's digital world. Think about it. Online platforms, algorithms, data collection, none of this even existed back then.
It's like trying to solve a modern problem with an ancient tool.
Exactly. They're struggling to figure out if a complete ban is really the best and fairest way to deal with this, or if it risks stifling free speech and economic opportunities for Americans.
Right. Some experts are proposing a less extreme approach. They're suggesting a delay in the ban so there's time for compromise and finding other solutions. Maybe stricter data security rules or making TikTok be more transparent. Those things might address the security concerns without having to completely ban the app.
Yeah, it's like walking a tightrope trying to balance national security with individual freedoms in this whole new digital world. We've never dealt with anything like this before.
Exactly. It's definitely uncharted territory, and it's not just about TikTok either. This case could set a precedent for how the government regulates other apps and online content in the future. It's like opening Pandora's box.
Right. If they can ban TikTok, what's to stop them from banning other platforms they see as a risk? This could have a ripple effect across the entire digital landscape.
Absolutely. Everything from social media and online shopping to online gaming could be affected.
It's huge, and it raises this fundamental question. Do we have the right to choose which platforms we use online? Do we have the right to express ourselves without worrying about being censored?
It's something we all need to be thinking about, right? These are questions we can't ignore as our lives become more and more intertwined with the digital world.
Absolutely.
It really shows the challenges we're facing in this digital age. You know, the people who wrote the Constitution, they couldn't have predicted any of this.
It's a whole new world, and the stakes are really high.
Yeah, for sure. And the arguments in this case are really complex. Mike Muse, he's a tech policy fellow, and he pointed out something really interesting about TikTok's defense. He thinks their explanation of the algorithm and how it connects to free speech was actually pretty strong. Like it might even sway the court in their favor.
So maybe TikTok has a chance.
It's hard to say for sure, but Muse's perspective definitely shows how complex this case is. He even went a step further and suggested that the potential for manipulation isn't just from foreign governments. It could be from people and groups right here in the US, too.
Oh, wow.
So that makes you wonder, is it fair to target TikTok just because it's owned by a Chinese company?
Yeah, I see what you mean. And actually, Justice Thomas seemed to be thinking along those lines during the hearing, too. He was asking if there's really any difference between an American company manipulating things secretly and a foreign company doing the same thing.
It's a slippery slope, right? If we start regulating content based on the possibility of manipulation, where do we draw the line? Could this lead to the government censoring ideas they just don't like?
That's a really disturbing thought. And, speaking of disturbing, Tomatin, Justice Kavanaugh's question about the potential for using user data for bad things in the future was pretty unsettling.
Oh, absolutely. He brought up the idea that China could take data collected today and use it, say, decades from now to blackmail people who end up in powerful positions like in the government. It's
Right.
kind of like a ticking time bomb. You might not see the consequences right away, but they could be really bad down the road.
I get chills just thinking about it. But, Kim, our legal contributor, she reminded us that American users and TikTok itself, they have First Amendment rights too. Banning the app could be like silencing those voices and setting a dangerous example.
Exactly. And that leads us to a question for our listeners. If you were a Supreme Court justice, how would you weigh the concerns about national security against the potential harm to freedom of speech and expression? Tell us what you think in the comments.
It's a tough one for sure. Some legal experts think there might be other ways to address the security concerns, like maybe making TikTok have stricter data security or be more transparent about what they're doing instead of an all-out ban. They're looking for a more balanced approach that respects everyone's rights.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. This case has definitely sparked a super important conversation about the role technology plays in our lives and how we balance national security with individual freedom.
It's clear that this case is going to have a big impact. It's going to shake the future of the internet and our digital lives. But no matter what the Supreme Court decides, This is a conversation that needs to keep going.
I totally agree. We need to keep talking about this, thinking about all sides of the issue, and trying to find solutions that protect our country's safety and our basic freedoms in this digital world that's always changing.
We can't just ignore the challenges and opportunities that come with this digital age. It's something we have to deal with head on. And your voice is a really important part of this whole conversation.
What do you all think? Is banning TikTok something we have to do to keep the country safe? Or is it a step towards censorship in this digital age?
We really want to know what you think. Let us know in the comments below. And hey, if you found this discussion interesting, don't forget to give it a like. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our future deep dives into the biggest issues of our time.
This whole thing, it's like we're at a crossroads. This case could totally change how we think about these online platforms, the power of algorithms, and how involved the government should be in regulating the digital world.
It's not just about TikTok. This case could set a precedent, like a rule book for how the government deals with content moderation and data security across the whole internet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If the government can ban TikTok because of these worries, what's stopping them from going after other platforms they think are risky?
Right. It's a valid concern. This decision could have a ripple effect, It could influence regulations on everything, like social media, online shopping, online gaming, even stuff like artificial intelligence.
Wow. It makes you wonder, do we even have the right to choose which platforms we use online? Do we have the right to express ourselves without being afraid of censorship? Those are some big questions, and we really need to think about them seriously. This isn't just a legal fight. It's about society figuring out what the internet should be like and how we deal with technology. We need to find that balance between keeping the country safe and protecting individual freedoms in this digital world that's constantly changing.
Absolutely. What happens with this case will have a huge impact on future generations. It's going to shape how we connect online, how we get information, even how we define freedom of speech in the digital age.
So, what happens now? The Supreme Court hasn't made a decision yet, but no matter what they decide, this case has started a really important conversation that we can't ignore.
This is a conversation that needs to happen everywhere, not just in courts. It needs to happen in our homes, our schools, our communities. We need to talk about it, consider everyone's point of view, and work together to find solutions that protect both our national security and our basic rights in this digital world where everything's connected.
What do you think? Is banning TikTok necessary to keep our country safe? Or is it the government overstepping its boundaries and trying to control our digital lives? Let us know in the comments below.
We want to hear from you. And if you found this discussion insightful, hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future conversations exploring these important topics that are shaping our world.